This is the Teclast Master T8, so it's a smaller version of the Master T10, which you can see right here, that I reviewed about a month ago or so. So it's got the same spec, a MediaTek 8173, that's a hexa-core CPU, 4GB of RAM, 64GB of storage, and it runs Android 7. It's got a really nice screen on this, so it's got a resolution of 2560 by 1600, that's 16 by 10 aspect ratio. And at just 8.9 inches, the screen is very sharp. It's also fully laminated with very decent colors, deep blacks, and not so susceptible to reflections. Color reproduction is good. Overall, a top screen. It's also very bright too, with a maximum brightness of 310 lux, which is good for a fully laminated panel. So in the box, you get the tablet with a pre-applied screen protector, a tool there for the micro SD card slot. You get the charger, which is rated to 12 volts, 1.5 amps, and then a Type-C white USB cable. So up the top, we've got a 13 megapixel camera and then an 8 megapixel camera on the rear. So Teclast have made a wise move here and put the best camera on the front. Next to it's an ambient light sensor, and right here you'll see a fingerprint reader that works about 7 out of 10 times. So it's not the fastest. It can be quite slow at times. So what looks like a SIM tray here is in fact just the tray for the micro SD. So you need that tool to get the micro SD cards in and out. So not really that good for swapping out cards quickly. But if you want to keep a card in there, a large capacity one, I've tested up to 128 gigabytes and they work fine. We have 2 downwards firing speakers as well. Along the top left, a microphone. And then on the right, a reset button, metal, volume, and power buttons. Now these power buttons here don't rattle around. They're made out of metal and they have a good feel to them. Then up the top, we have a 3.5mm headphone jack, a plastic strip here for the antenna reception. Now the sound output out of this jack here, I did notice that it tends to be quite flat and I wish it had a little bit more volume to it. And then on the left, you can see there our Type-C port. Now I couldn't actually get any video output out of this, so it's only charging and data. So the rear of the tablet's made out of metal, so it has a metal unibody. Feels really good in hand too. And you'll notice there that's our rear-facing 8 megapixel autofocus camera. Now the photo quality and the video out of these cameras is okay. The front-facing camera actually turns out to be a lot better than most because it's got a higher megapixel count, so it can take a decent selfie, but you must be in good light. And overall, the build quality of this tablet is excellent for the about $179 price tag I have seen this selling for. It runs Android 7.0, so it's not the latest version, and the security patch level is from April, which isn't exactly recent either. And when you first get the tablet, there are about 5 or 6 bloatware applications, and then of course your default Google ones. Here you can see we do have Play Store on here, Chrome and Photos, but for some reason there's no standard gallery app on there. But the good thing is we can remove that bloatware. You can just uninstall it. Apart from one right here, you can see this little lock icon. That's some Chinese security program. That's the only one I couldn't uninstall. And because it's running Android 7, you can split screen apps that support it, of course. And you see here I have Chrome and then Amazon Prime, and it's quite quick. The performance is decent. Now to just point out a couple of things. So Teclast are pushing out over-the-air updates, bug fixes. I got this update 01 here, which just patched a few things, which is good to see. But I don't think we're ever going to see Android 8 on this device. So when you first get it, you get about 53 gigabytes free storage. Now onto my battery life testing. Now I decided to push it really hard here. So I was gaming the whole time and I got close to 4 hours. Well, in fact, 4 hours of screen on time. But you should be able to get, with light use like web use and a little bit of gaming, at least 6 to 7, maybe even higher hours there, maybe even 8 hours. So that was 4 hours of screen on time, almost 3 hours there of gaming with HIT. But I also played a few other games that totaled up to about another 30 minutes or so. And this is the charge time here. So it takes approximately 3 hours and 30 minutes to fully charge this device. And onto wireless speeds and range. So very decent performance here. The max is out. This is wireless AC that it has, but it's not a super high-end chipset. So it sort of tops out around 200 megabits per second. And I found the range to be good, Not quite as good as the Teclast T10 for some reason. I think it's because we've only got really that limited antenna space here along the top of the tablet. And that could be the reason why we just don't have that much coverage of the antenna and more metal around the outside. But overall, quite decent, and I'm very pleased with those speeds there that I was able to get. Also, ebooks look really good on the screen because it's nice and sharp. Now, you will notice that the colors, it doesn't look like a perfect white at the moment, and that's actually because of the screen protector that's on the screen. Now, I don't know whether it's scratch resistant, so I haven't removed it. I've just left it on because I don't want to scratch the screen up. But yeah, that's what's causing that funny looking sort of patchiness and the different shades of white there. Now looking at PDF performance. So this is a very large PDF I have here with large image files, and it looks really good on the screen because of the screen quality, the deep blacks, and the sharpness over it overall that we have. Good colors too, of course. And the performance of it, well, if you skip ahead reasonably fast, it takes a little while to display the images, but overall this performance I feel is very decent. So we have the two downwards firing speakers, and they're actually quite loud, but they do distort a little bit and they lack bass, but I'll give you a sample of them right now. Now this is the Antutu score, so 81,000, it's quite a decent score for this type of tablet. And just a couple other things to point out too, that this tablet, unlike the Teclast T10, this does not have GPS in it. It doesn't have a gyro. All it has for sensors is the ambient light sensor and then the accelerometer. So the ROM is stable apart from one thing. The camera application tends to often crash. Like right here, it's just completely jammed up on me. It stops responding. That is the only bug I have encountered. Hopefully Teclast is going to patch this. So before I get started on the gaming performance, you can also buy this optional Bluetooth controller that Teclast is selling with their own branding on it. You can see, and it's called the wireless controller, well, the T-Box wireless controller. Now it's Bluetooth, and we have a charging port here down the bottom, which is micro USB 2. You get your typical controls in a sort of like an Xbox 360 layout. So you've got your typical keys here, media controls here, some home, select, start buttons, and the triggers at the top there you can see. So what it does is it locks in place. It's spring loaded, but then you can lock it here. There's like a locking mechanism, so it'll lock it on there, and it just gives you these wider extra grips. Now the controller itself is okay. I've noticed that probably I need to change the settings or something. I've noticed that it's very sensitive, the movements here, so it takes a little while to get used to controlling with this controller. It's certainly no Xbox 360 or Xbox One or PlayStation 4 controller, but you know, it does the job, and I guess it makes things a little bit more comfortable having the controls either side. Now gaming performance is exactly the same as the Master T10 because of course it's the same chipset and GPU, PowerVR GPU that it has in here. The performance is quite good. Modern Combat 5 this game. I mean, you see a few stutters and lags now and then. I mean, it's not perfect, but super playable with a high graphics quality setting too. So this title here, which is Hit, Heroes of Incredible Tales, running really well on this. So even with a lot of things going on the screen, the GPU and the CPU is keeping up, so you get a very smooth frame rate on this one. And this title here, World of Tanks, very good frame rate on this one. Really smooth. It seems to be running most of the time at about 60 frames per second. I'm getting hit here and I'm stuck. Let's see if I can at least fire back at this enemy. I completely missed as well. As you can tell, I don't play this game a lot, but it is running well. And yeah, I'm dead already. Mortal Kombat X, really smooth. Now this is running at the full resolution, so this game doesn't upscale from like 1080p or 720p. Looks great. And it's pretty much running perfect here. A little bit of slowdown perhaps. But it's not like it isn't going to be playable. Now one game I could not get to run is Asphalt Extreme here. For some reason it just keeps checking the online profile, times out, has an error, and it keeps repeating and repeating and repeating, getting nowhere. And I'm not too sure who's to blame here, whether this is Gameloft's fault or this is something to do with the tablet, but this one does not work. Oh, and there we go, it just crashed again on me. So to recap here, the Master T8 from Teclast is a great little tablet. It is a premium tablet really because it has a premium screen in there that is fully laminated. It has a unibody metal build on there. The build quality is excellent. And overall, great screen on there because it gets really deep blacks on there. Good contrast, decent enough brightness. And of course, we have a stock Android 7 ROM on here. Okay, there are a couple of bloatware applications out of the box, but you can uninstall all but one of them. So it's not really an issue there. And we are getting some over-air updates too from Teclast. And I hope they patch that problem with the camera. So it's a solid tablet with only two grey areas, really. And that is that the camera app will crash sometimes, and then the fingerprint reader can be quite slow at times and a little bit frustrating. I sometimes just end up putting in my PIN number instead of using the fingerprint reader to unlock it. So if you must have a really good fingerprint reader, then perhaps this isn't the model for you. But the battery life is also decent. I mean, I can get a solid 4.5 hours of gaming on this, and you can get up to around 7 hours of your typical kind of use. So a little bit of gaming, mixed use, web browsing, YouTube, streaming, all good. Also fast internet speeds too via that wireless AC. And there's also one other tiny little minor complaint too, is that the audio output from the 3.5mm jack does sound a little bit flat. It's not very punchy, and there's a tiny a little bit of hiss and static over that line as well there. But overall, a great tablet here. If you haven't seen my review of the Teclast Master T10, which is the bigger 10.1 inch version, that also has a fully laminated display, then please check that out. And I do hope to see you back with more up and coming reviews on tablets from China.